So that's the beauty of an expired domain that's already got a really powerful backlink profile, is that we probably won't do that in the first instance because there's going to be plenty of opportunities to, with the sites that are ranking that are weaker than us, a DL64 that we can go for. So that's what we'll go for initially, because what a lot of people, when you say that we paid $5,000 for a domain, people might think that's a bit crazy, or even a couple of $1,000 is a bit crazy, but it's actually a really, really cheap way to buy backlinks when you consider how much you'd pay for a service to get the same number of backlinks, 300 or 400 referring domains. It costs way more than $1,000 or $2,000 that you might spend on a domain, and it's aged. You've got to pick the right one. You've got to do your due diligence, because just because it's a powerful domain doesn't mean it'll make a good niche site, and not every domain has a good history that you'd want to build a site, a good foundation for building a site on. So as long as you pick the right domain, it's actually a really cheap way of buying links. So yeah, to answer your question directly, when in that first instance, when we're doing the first million words, we won't build any links. However, if it takes off down the road and we see it really flying and thinking, hey, we can make this into much more of like a serious authority site and widen the scope into more sports and things, then maybe, and we want to go for some of the bigger players and the more difficult keywords, then that's when we'd look to build links as well.
Very cool. Yeah, and I agree 100% with the, expired domain, or if, the better way, I think you could disagree if you want, would be to find a blog that has not yet expired and it's just under monetized. Maybe it's neglected and you could buy it for, relatively cheap because it's not earning much money. And then at that point, a lot of times with the expired domains, I've heard that there's some volatility. You may see, like you said, certain results, and you don't know how Google is treating those expired domains. But if it never expired, well, you're just coming up and publishing new content on a blog that didn't get any attention for a while. So yeah, I mean, 5,000 is a lot if you're comparing it to just a brand new domain. But when you add in the fantastic backlinks, it would be very expensive to get, however many backlinks. I'm just going to make up a number. You didn't tell me this, but to get, 100 backlinks that are pretty high quality, I mean, that takes time to get them. And then if you try to do it just immediately, it could take you, a year to get 100 really good backlinks. It could take you, 5 years to do it, depending on the niche. So very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And when, I'm just curious, when are you guys launching this? Like, when is it going to be in action?
So the keyword research is done, at least for, it's not the biggest one. It's not one of the biggest sports in terms of the amount of content we can write for. I mean, it's a popular sport, but it doesn't have a lot of equipment associated with it in terms of affiliate content. We're actually struggling a little bit to get to the million words because of the lack of actually opportunity. But we will anyway, because we're writing a lot of informational content, and if we have to branch out into shoulder niches and stuff as well, then we'll do that too. But the keyword research is done up for like 600, 700, 800,000 words ish, and we've got 200,000 words ready, prepped to go for our writers. So they're going to be starting on that in like the next week or so, I expect. We'll get the first 200,000 words done. I guess probably then it'll be a couple of weeks' time they'll be done, the first 200,000 words.
All right. That's cool. I'll be interested to get an update as it goes along here. So any other details about this case study that I didn't ask you about that are interesting?
I've got to say no again. I don't think there's anything else to cover on that.
I'm a good interviewer.
You cover all the bases. Yeah. I mean, I think we're gonna be pretty public as well about this, but probably through yourself, Doug, and more than kind of on our own blog. But we're going to provide updates as much as we can, because hopefully it'll be interesting to see what happens, if nothing else, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of people don't have the resources to do it. So it's good to see Like, what can happen if you were to try this? It's a very common question that I get. And I have, sort of a side note here on YouTube. It's kind of weird occasionally. And some people have said, hey, this person's story is not relatable to me because I don't have $10,000 or whatever. Well, the good part is you can still learn from other case studies if you have different constraints. You may actually come up with more creative ideas to solve problems if you have those constraints. So, yeah, I know people may not have the resources to pay for a million words, but some people do, and they do buy a million words worth of content. And then other people can still learn from your experience when you're sharing it, which is good. So everyone remember that. I know some people are like, fuck that guy who has $15,000 to buy content, but you know what? He's like, they're doing it. So maybe try to learn something and don't complain about free information. So just a
Yeah,
gripe.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I think the numbers are just bigger, right? So if you double what you put into it or triple what you put into it, the more you put into it, the numbers are bigger then. So it still applies down at the lower level. So if you can only afford 100,000 words over time, over a year maybe or something, but you can double or triple your money, it's you're still double or tripling your money. It's just that the numbers aren't as big. So I think the whole thing still applies. It's still relevant, whichever level you're looking at there.
Yep. And you don't know if it's going to work. And, some of the other comments that I've received about people investing, it's a risk. You're literally putting money up and you don't know if you're going to get a return on it at all. It's probably going to work out. You're calculating exactly what kind of moves you're making. You're not just ramping up out of nowhere, but there's a chance you're not going to see the ROI that you're expecting, and it would be in a very public way. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing the story, and I'm excited to hear more in the future.
The things about these things is as well as that I think we come across this when we have new people starting into this space and I've got similar fears. Is that very, very rarely, it's almost entirely unlikely that you're just going to lose everything that you've put in. If you put $10,000 into a site and you've done it properly, you've created the content, you've maybe built some links or whatever, it's never going to be a complete loss. You're not going to have lost all of that money because what you've built is going to be an asset that's worth something. So consider a scenario where, okay, the site's only worth $5,000 by the time you've finished with it. And you spent 10, then you haven't lost your full 10, you've lost 5. So I think people think if I spend this, I could just lose it all. And unless you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, or I mean, there's always a risk with Google, right? That the algorithm will come along and it doesn't take any prisoners. You don't necessarily have to be doing anything particularly wrong, but very, very rarely you're going to lose everything. Especially if you pay for an expired domain as well, that domain holds its value. If you spent $2,000 on the domain, it's probably still worth $2,000 at the end of the day, as long as you didn't buy a dud in the first place. You got someone to help you with the due diligence and that. So.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. That's a nuance that we can talk about another time. It's beyond the scope, but there is intrinsic value either in the links or in the content. So usually you're not left with nothing. There's something there, but with the volatility, that's one of the big things with website investing. You get huge returns, but it's typically more volatile than if you bought a piece of real estate, which has its own challenges too. So there's no like free rides in any case, but it is it's unlikely, like you said, to lose everything if you were relatively smart and didn't make any weird mistakes or tried to take too many shortcuts. That's what happens a lot of times if someone tries to take shortcuts by paying really cheap amounts for content, or hire some random person on Fiverr to do your link building. You could run into trouble there and actually have nothing at the end. But yeah. So
I think you're right. Deep. I mean, move the content. Like you said, the content's got value. If it didn't work out on a domain, move it to another one. We sometimes work with clients that they've built up a lot of authority in a specific niche, and they try to create a shoulder niche. And for whatever reason, the shoulder niche just doesn't get the same traction as the primary niche on there. And, they can invest lots of time and, links and stuff into it and still doesn't kind of work out. Then at the end of the day, you go, okay, well, let's just buy a domain that is specifically that targeted that niche already, or has got a history with that niche, and then just migrate the content over there and just kind of move everything over. And then, that content's still valuable, as you say, and you still got an opportunity then with a new site to make use of it.
Very good. Well, anything else, Mark, on your mind today?
I think so. Like, how's it where you are? What's the weather like? It's still hot down there?
Actually, we got like a foot of snow over the weekend. And
did you?
Yeah. Oh. And I think it chilled down to about 1 degree Fahrenheit. So that is extremely cold. What would that be? That's like negative 16 C or something. I mean, it's cold.
Yeah.
Very cold.
Is that normal for the time of year for you?
It's unusual. It happens occasionally. Usually it's more like January, February timeframe. And it's crazy. We actually had like some pretty serious wildfires, very, very close to us. But I mean, we were safe, but you could see like tons of smoke. You couldn't see the sun. So we needed the precipitation, and it helped the fires quite a bit. So, but yeah, it's very, I mean, it warmed up a little bit today, but it's pretty cold here. So.
I was thinking that because you had your jumper on, which you don't normally see, but I'm sure it was only a month ago you were saying it was really hot, but maybe it's more than I thought.
Yeah, it was like,
okay.
It was like 100 degrees, whatever weeks ago.
Okay.
So, it was big shift right before the big snow. It was, very warm, wearing shorts and a t-shirt, like pretty warm weather. So what about where you're at there?
Yeah, it turned a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, it's not exactly the warmest place in the world anyway, in England. So, we had a good summer. We've had a few good summers, the last few years. I think it's probably global warming's helping with that. But yeah, it's got cold now. It's just wet, and just dreary. So.
Yeah. And the cool thing here is we got like 300 sunny days a year. So it snowed for like a day and a half, ton of snow, shoveled the driveway. They plow everything, and then the sun comes out. So even if it's like 30 degrees, like around 0 Celsius, feels pretty good. I was like wearing shorts when I went to the gym earlier, and it feels fine. Everything there's a lot of snow on the grass, but I could like drive around, and the sidewalks are all clear. So it's pretty crazy. So it's sunny and blue skies, looks nice. The mountains look beautiful. So